first step in the beginning. Once you start, you're already on your way to success. You will be, when you come back, you will be a different person. And in some respects, the biggest issue for you when you return from an endurance like that is that you will want to do it again. People being stuck inside their comfort zone. The point is that you stop, you take a view, you review how everything's going, what you need to do, and then you act accordingly. It's wonderful. You know, it's so inspirational. And I love the fact that it's not just a test of endurance, but it's also a discovery of life.
Hey, hello, pilgrims. This is Efrain Mendoza from the Way to Your Way podcast by Camino Wonders. And we have here a special guest today. We have Peter Gourri. He is an ICF life coach. And we would like to ask you, Peter, so can you tell us a little bit about you? And first, welcome to our podcast.
And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name's Peter Gourri. I'm an ICF executive coach. I'm a trained life coach, but I primarily work with executives. And my background, and the reason why this is such a fascinating area to talk about, is because I started off as a lawyer. I was a lawyer in the United Kingdom for 25 years in the city of London, and I did commercial litigation. But I also spent 25 years with the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve Training Branch, which meant that I've been involved in the outdoors ever since I was a kid. I adore the outdoors, and I'm a qualified outdoors instructor as well. In addition to that, I was the vice chair of the Appalachian Mountain Club, New York, North Jersey chapter. I've been a bit restricted in recent years because I have, unfortunately, a back injury, a spinal injury, a neck injury that have restricted me. But it doesn't mean that I can't plan. And the clients I work through, basically, I help them to get through their stoppages, to think outside the box, and to deal with their breakthroughs so they can enjoy life to the full. So that's really me in a nutshell.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that information with us. So, one question that I would like to ask you. So, when talking about life coaching, so how that life coaching you see that relate to everyone's life?
Well, so I'm so pleased you asked that, because the whole purpose of coaching, the whole purpose of life or executive coaching is that what we, as coaches, we talk about people being stuck inside their comfort zone. And if you can imagine a comfort zone as being a round circle, and in the middle you've got a big black dot, which are your fears. Now, for me, my fears, the material fears are, snakes, insects, cockroaches, and North Carolina drivers. Those are my main material fears, but they're irrelevant. We're talking about irrational fears, the things that hold us back. We can't do it. Why try? Just stay inside our comfort zone. And what we try to encourage our clients to do is to break out of the comfort zone into the place where possibility lives. And that's it in a nutshell. And undertaking an experience like this is one of those. That for much of our lives, we have a social conditioning that tells us that we can't do things sometimes. For me, anything and everything is possible. Even if you have to do the Camino via a car, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it because you lose the whole joy of it.
Yeah.
But, by setting your target, by setting your future vision, and then working backwards. So I'm going to start off this journey in France, and I'm going to make it all the way to the end. What do I need to do that? And then you just work backwards from there. And anything and everything is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually part of the life. And that's how I will compare the Camino with the life by itself, is that through the life, you have a lot of challenges that happen. And
yes. And I think the Camino, I think the wonderful thing about Camino is that my parents used to go to Lourdes every year in France, which is, for those who aren't aware, is a holy site. I've never actually been, I'm ashamed to say, but they started going after an experience which they had with illness, namely a tumour. And my father actually recovered after taking Lourdes water. Now, this isn't a religious podcast, and actually I don't want to make it about that either.
No, that's fine.
The point is, it's the meaning of faith, and it's the meaning of faith in yourself. So for some people, the Camino is a bit like doing the Appalachian Trail. It's a test of endurance. It's a test of, your strength and your personal perseverance. But for others, it's a combination of that plus an emotional journey, based on whatever your background is, whether it's a faith-based one or whether it's just a case of feeling the spirit within you. I have to say, I'm ashamed to admit, I didn't actually know about the Camino until I watched the movie. And and it was at that point I realized, gosh, this is wonderful. It's so inspirational. And I love the fact that it's not just a test of endurance, but it's also a discovery of life during which you get to enjoy the cultural heritage and joys of the people along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Camino is like a self encounter also as well, and you get out of your daily routine,
Yeah,
and you are there and you are walking, you are seeing a lot of scenes, you are meeting a lot of people, and all those challenges that you are having there, then you can translate those at your life when you come back.
absolutely right. I mean, when I reflect back to when I was a young man, I'm in my 50s now, but when I was a young man, when I was serving with the Volunteer Reserve, and I did a lot of work with army units and things, and we did endurance exercises and, sort of 30-mile yomps. A yomp is a type of kind of, walking type thing at speed. Um, it can be daunting. But the point is that anything is possible. And so while you're doing it, you're going along, you go through those phases of, you start off, you're with a group of people, halfway through, you just want to give up. But then you realize, okay, I'm over halfway through now, nearly at the end. And it gives you that kind of uplifting spirit. And the point is that by giving yourself that foundation of reminding yourself, right, these are the stages that I'm going to go through on this journey. This is how it's going to feel, but this is what I'm aiming for. And in many respects, actually, the Camino is rather lovely because you have so many stages that you pass through and so many experiences as you're going along. It's not just A to B; it's A B, A B C D E F G, etc.
Yeah,
And I love that. And you know, I think the very fact that it has a purpose for a lot of people, it helps them to get connected with themselves just in terms of understanding themselves and realizing more about themselves as an individual, recognizing that, yes, I have limitations that I've placed on myself, but those are only my own limitations. I can hold myself back or I can choose to do the things that I want to do. And by going through something like the Camino experience, that then gives you the opportunity to apply that to the other aspects of your life.
yeah,
Whether it's your business, personal, or other, recognizing that I'm going to try. And even if I don't manage to make it to the end, I've still managed to do it. And one of the things that I always say to my clients when I'm working with them is, listen, no plan is set in stone. You always have to review what you're doing. And the point is that you stop, you take a view, you review how everything's going, what you need to do, and then you act accordingly. But the point is that you try in the first step. It's always that first step in the beginning. Once you start, you're already on your way to success, irrespective of what it is that you're trying to do.
yeah. That's absolutely right. If you don't try, you're not gonna know what's gonna be the result. And then you have, well, if I would try that, probably I will know what will happen.
I would hate to think of a situation where people, are lying towards the end of their life when they're not capable of doing these things anymore, full of regrets at not ever even trying to do something.
Yeah,
Life's too short. It's not a dress rehearsal. And life is too short just to not try things and not do things. And so that's really why it's like everything is possible. You at least try to do it. If you don't succeed, that's fine. It was an experience, not a
yeah,
failure. And that's one of the other aspects of this is life is not a failure. Life is just full of experiences.
Yes.
Don't look upon it as being a bad thing. Look upon it as being a fantastic thing, a great thing.
Yeah, and the nice part about the Camino is that the Camino is a gift for yourself. And then
Absolutely.
when the person is walking, even if that person cannot complete the whole route or the whole Camino, that's fine. Today, the Camino, because I've been walking more than 1,000 years, have so many things. Even you can go to a taxi or something that if you cannot continue, you can do it by taxi or by train, or there are multiple things that you can do if you are not able to keep walking.
And this is exactly the point. And I have friends in the United Kingdom and in Europe who are specialists in helping people do expeditions around the world. One of my best friends is an international expedition guide, and he works with a disabled group. And what they've been working really hard at is getting funding for, for like buggies, effectively, to support people in undertaking these activities, even when they're physically unable to do a lot of things. And the point is that no experience should be held back. My nephew's wife is a Paralympian. She's a Paralympic swimmer,
Well,
and she says that although unfortunately had an amputation as a child as a result of an accident, but it actually made her the person she is. And I have to say, I think of her often because whenever I'm feeling a bit sort of down in the dumps or I feel like I can't achieve something, I remind myself of she overcame her disabilities, and in the face of adversity, um, she managed to take part in the Beijing Olympics, and she carried on in various other competitions around the world as well. And you think, okay, well, in that case, if I don't try, what a shame that would be.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And after the Olympics, when the Paralympics started, the last one was the one in France.
Yes,
So I was looking into a run, and then those were blind people running.
yes. One
That's
of my
amazing.
One of my very close friends who I grew up with from the age of 5, a woman called Natasha Bream in the UK, she does, what are they called? The endurance running, the 50-mile marathons. And she does those with blind people. So she acts as their guides. So they're attached for the whole journey. Ultra, that was the word I was looking for. And she does that because she's herself done lots of marathons, lots of ultra running, and this was the next stage, helping other people. The point is that it's just in our minds. I mean, look, I really want to do the Camino now. I have to wait a little bit because I have a spinal injury. Okay, I'm incapable of doing it at the moment, but I'm still planning on doing it in the future, however that may be. Nothing needs to hold us back.
Yeah,
We can achieve anything and everything. We might need support. We might need to vary the way in which we do it. As you said, it could be that you walk for some of it and then you take a taxi or a bus and then you walk a bit more and then you take a taxi or a bus. Or maybe you stay a little bit longer overnight in a longer rest period. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. And
no,
by that enriching experience, it's so fantastic. And I know, for instance, that you facilitate people with the trips that you do there. And you and I first met when you gave a presentation on the Camino, and I told you then I thought you were fantastic because it's clear that you really take care of people.
yeah,
And also, I love the fact that you put in place those systems to support people the whole way along, so they don't
yeah.
need to worry, and you make it as simple as possible for them. Which is magnificent. It just shows you that there are systems and people in place to help everybody.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we're doing here today with the podcast, because people, I wanted that everyone that have that intention to do the Camino at some point of their life, they watch different opinions from different people, and they just build by themselves. Oh, this is something that I can do it. And I
Yes,
wanted to do it in the next 3 months, not in 2 years from now. Because sometimes
yes,
we put that so far away that a lot of things can happen between now and 2 years that prevent us to do it then at a later time. And
yes,
this last Camino that I did this year, for example, and talking about things that prevent that someone may do the Camino, I have 2 examples for this for today. I one of the person that it caught my attention was a lady. Probably she was around her 40s, and she was walking the Camino without one leg,
Yeah.
and she was still walking.
Yeah.
And a person that was there asked, "What happened to you?" And she said, "Well, when I was a kid, a train go over my leg, so I lost my leg." And even with that limitation, she went there and she was walking. Of course, she doesn't walk the same that in a normal person can walk, but she was walking and she was really happy, excited about what she was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, as I mentioned, my nephew's wife, she lost her, her hand and part of her arm as a child, and she's actually done the London to Paris cycle ride. And my nephew's an engineer; he's a wonderful lad, Christopher, and he actually created a prosthetic for her for the bicycle so that she could cycle. And I've known other people. I mean, as I mentioned, my friend Natasha, who does the ultras, with blind people, and when I see them, and I remember the London 2012 Paralympics, I went to lots of them. It made me feel extremely humble, but also slightly embarrassed because I thought about all of the things that these individuals achieve, and I recognized there's nothing stopping me except myself.
Yeah.
But as humans, it's in our nature for some of us that we make excuses. One of my friends has a very severe stutter, and I'm not going to name him for obvious reasons. And the only time when he doesn't stutter is when he explains why he can't do things, because that's the thing with which he has the utmost confidence. His most confident moment is when he's explaining to you why he can't achieve things. But the reality is that he's one of the most capable, kindest, and brilliant individuals I've ever known. And, as a coach, what I reflect to people is what shows up when you do? What do you bring into a room? And so the perfect example is yourself. When we met in person, you came in, you're clearly a wonderful human being, and you gave a presentation in such a way that you instilled trust in people immediately. They knew that not only did you know exactly what you were talking about, but people know that when they're talking to you, they're safe. And more to the point, not just safe, but also in a safe place as well for them on an emotional level, because they know that you've got their best interests in hand and you're going to take care of them. And I told you that at the time, how impressed I was with the
Yeah,
work
well,
that you
thank you.
do. I have a lot of experience in terms of outdoor activities and, the safety aspects and things like that from my past. And I was so impressed by you. And it's a lesson to all of us. Everything is possible. Nothing is impossible.
Yeah. And then there is another example that I saw this time when I was in the Camino. That was a family that was with their kids. And one of the kids was at 3 years old. And
Wonderful.
she was in a stroller. So you can imagine that the strollers, there are times that you can go with the stroller normally, but there
Yes.
are times that you need to carry the whole stroller with the baby as well.
Mm,
So that's more weight than usual.
yeah,
And that person was really happy doing that. So the dad was really happy walking the Camino with that.
absolutely. I mean, what an amazing experience as a family to
Yeah.
have that type of journey together. And it's something that, irrespective of age, all of them will remember.
Yes, the Camino can be walked solo, can be walked with a family of two, of three, four, a group, a big group. There are multiple things that how you can walk the Camino, and then you can walk the Camino. Also, you can bike the Camino if you want to go by bicycle.
I
That's
saw that.
something possible as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video where I heard somebody actually saying, "You mean you can do this on a bicycle?" Yes. And I mean, the whole thing is just amazing. And as I say, for me also, the cultural enrichment that it offers you, the very fact that you are meeting people the whole way along the way, and the fact that the local people along the whole journey, from France all the way through, through Spain to the end, they they're part of that journey and they welcome the people to their villages and to their hostels, etc., because it's not just a source of income, it's not just part of their economy, it's part of their life. And it has been for over 1,000 years. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is possibly one of the most beautiful aspects of it. It's a calling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there is something else that I have listened during the time that I've been working with all of the Camino uh, plans that I'm working. That also sometimes people say that, well, but they are getting too crowded. There's too much people. But then in reality, those crowded there, yeah, there are spaces that are more people than other ones. For example, when you are getting to the city, there are, but it's the same. Is when you're
Yes.
going, you are in Holy Spring, for example, there is not that much traffic. But if you're
No.
going to Raleigh,
Yeah.
there's more traffic, so there is more people. So the same is here. When you are walking and you are approaching to Santiago, there is going to be more people than when you were, for example, coming from France. That is less people. And then is there are a lot of Caminos. There are not just the French Camino is the more well known, but there are other Caminos that they are just few people, not few people, but there are a lot less people than on the French Camino. So there are still ways to walk, and all of them, at least the one that I've been knowing, that I knew the part of the Camino del Norte. I know the French Camino. I've been in the coastal Portuguese Camino, and the Portuguese Camino, the Fisterra Camino, and all of those are amazing. The
Yes.
views, everything, the people that are walking are fantastic.
But I think also the very fact that it's such a variation. I mean, I've heard similar things being said about the Appalachian Trail, how some of it's becoming crowded, but that's not the entire trail. And the point is that it's that variation which also helps you going, because you have those moments where frankly you're in deep contemplation, you're almost in silence, in solitude, but then you have those moments where you kind of have the joyfulness of almost a festival feeling. And I mean, we've all done our European trips to Rome and Venice and places like that. And personally, I always make sure I stay in a less trendy area, so it's nice and quiet. But it's also nice to go to the busy parts and to
Yeah.
mix with people, etc. And the point is that these are just mere challenges, and they're all part of the experience. It shouldn't stop us trying.
Yeah. And then also when you're getting into that population where you're getting more people around, that's you have more opportunity to talk with somebody, and
Yes,
that person may tell you something that
yes.
you were not able to know before that person mentioned that to you.
One of the things that my parents always said about going to Lourdes was that the people who went to Lourdes were from every denomination. Some weren't Christian, were atheists. People just wanted to see it for what it was. And so there were people from all over the world mixing together in one place because they're there for that experience. But more importantly, they're there for the spiritual journey, whatever that spiritual journey may represent for them. And, what a magnificent thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. So, and I have a question for you. If what kind of tips would you give to someone that tell you, oh, I would like to go to the Camino? What kind of tips would you provide to that person?
Well, thank you for asking that. I mean, obviously, on a practical level, I would tell them to start small, but from a coaching perspective, first of all, I always get my clients to think about any plan that they want to do, and the first thing is, what do you want to do? Okay, what's your objective? How will you measure the objective? So, what's your objective to walk the Camino, whatever stretch it might be? Because obviously, as you already mentioned, there are parts of it. There are different parts of it. You can do the whole thing, or you can do, sort of parts of the various journeys. How will you measure success for yourself? What's your future vision? And that's a tricky one. That's where you think about where you're going to be in the future, and it's almost like a visionary thing in your head, and you think backwards from there. And the whole point of future vision, and you might want to write yourself a letter, from the future. You've done it, you've finished the Camino, it's been an enlightening experience. And what that does is it gives you an unused muscle. So when you're feeling at your worst, or you've got blisters on your feet, you're feeling hot, sweaty, the beds are uncomfortable, or at least you think they are because your muscles are aching, etc. You really want to give up. Every single ounce of your being just wants to give up and walk away, and you're stamping your feet. Then you think about your future vision, and that muscle, that unused muscle, will keep pushing you. And then you think about the practical aspects. To run a marathon, to do a trek, to do any kind of physical activity, it needs some sort of work. Okay, you can't really do things straight off, especially something like the Camino. But the point is that you start off small. You could just do it by walking. By increasing your walking, and then you keep increasing it. Then you might find yourself going to different areas which are more challenging. Getting used to wearing walking boots and walking kit, then carrying a backpack with a little bit of weight in it, eventually even sort of, carrying what you would carry on the Camino. And I know, for instance, that you actually provide a luggage service, so people only need to have their water on them and their food for that day.
Yeah.
So that makes it so much easier. But for some people, they will choose to backpack and have all of their kit with them. And slowly, you work up to a stage where you can satisfy yourself that you are at a good place to be in order to undertake the activity. And it might take 6 months, it might take 3 months, depending on your level. I am an older person who is somewhat unfit at the moment because I haven't been able to undertake as much exercise as I want to because of an injury. So I would start off small. I would start off on the treadmill and literally just walking while I'm watching a movie on my iPad, and then start working on gradient sort of walking. Then I'd start walking with walking boots instead of trainers, instead of sneakers. And then I'd start walking on the treadmill with a backpack on. And then I'd transfer that to the street and, maybe go up into Northwest Carolina in order to, West North Carolina, I apologize, in order to, test myself a bit and push myself. And you make it a joyful event. You don't make it a chore. You make it something that's all part of the spiritual journey. And the point is that while you're doing all of that, you will face challenges. You will get enormous blisters on your feet, irrespective of how prepared you are. Okay, you can limit what you do. You can learn different techniques, and I encourage everybody to go on to whatever resources are available on the internet to find things out and listen to other people. But you will suffer these things. Don't look upon them as suffering. Look upon them as being tests which you can overcome. And before you know it, you're on that plane from the States over to France or Spain, and you're on your journey.
Yeah, and that new journey, you're going to bring it back to your normal life after you finish?
When you come back, you will be a different person. And in some respects, the biggest issue for you when you return from an endurance like that is that you will want to do it again. And so as soon as you return back to your normal life, you'll be thinking, right, what's next?
Yeah,
And
that's absolutely right.
It will be, yeah.
Yes. We have done the Camino twice, and we wanted to do a third one already.
Wonderful.
Because it's so enjoyable, all what you live there, that it's not just about walking, the people, the food, the places where you go, the sighting, everything. It's fantastic.
When I was a lawyer, I come from a humble background. I come from blue collar roots. My mum and dad were both immigrants to the United Kingdom, and my mum and dad were both mechanics in the family business. And my mom was a mechanic when it wasn't necessarily trendy for a woman to be a mechanic, so she had it pretty tough. And so when I started work, when I was 17 years old full time, and I had part-time jobs before that, I lived to work. I pushed myself every hour of the day because I've always been driven by that kind of fear of, the fact that, frankly, I grew up poor. I've been lucky. I became a lawyer, a senior lawyer at that, and I've done very well with my life. But the point is that I pushed myself so much by living to work that I forgot that actually you work to live. I forgot to enjoy myself along the way. And it's a very easy trap to fall into. but it doesn't mean that you can't change things. You can't have a transformation in your life and enjoy it to the full. I've lost friends over the years, whether it's through natural causes or otherwise. And one of the things that I've learned is life is the ultimate adventure. Embrace it and enjoy it. And these aren't buzzwords. These are reality. Get out there and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't hold back. Just enjoy yourself and do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Peter, for all that information that you have been providing to us today. And thank you, Pilgrim, for watching us today. Please put your comments on the comment sections and with questions. That way we know what other scenes or themes you like that we touch on future chapters. And then, buen camino. And hope to see you on the next chapter, on the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.